sound coming from the video? Do you guys hear the sound that's coming from the video that's on the screen share right now?
We hear the music.
The music? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, because I can't hear it on my side, so I'm just wondering.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll be going live on our webinar in I guess we'll go live right now. Then at 10 o'clock sharp, you can, Judy, you can start the webinar.
good morning to all and happy Lunar New Year. I'm Julie and I'm privileged to be on the board for the Society for Wings, or Wings for short. It is the only non-profit in Singapore focused on empowering women to stay healthy, be socially engaged, and financially secure, especially in their later years. Today, I'm very delighted to moderate the first of 4 great webinars for women turning 40, all aimed at helping women to achieve their physical, mental, and emotional goals as they enter the next chapter of their lives. This webinar series is organized by Wings and Access Health International. Before we go into the topic proper for today, I'm delighted to invite the President of Wings, Bey Teck Ching, and also Access Health International Southeast Asia's Senior Program Manager, Valerie Shelley, to say a few words. Can I invite Teck Ching first? Teck Ching.
She's muted.
Teck Ching, I think you're muted.
Okay, come again. Good morning, everybody. I'm Teck Ching, President of Wings. Thank you for participating in this Wings Access Health Women at 40 webinar. 40s is a wonderful life stage, right? That comes with many unique set of challenges and opportunities. Firstly, we are a daughter to aging parents, a mother to growing up children, teenagers, a life partner to our other half, a professional in our own right, and a homemaker is an all-in-one who is also looking for personal fulfillment. In a recent survey of women aged 40 to 49, only 6% said that they are fully confident and prepared for managing their own life transitions in the next decade, and 22% are not prepared at all. This underpins the genesis of this webinar series, where we brought in experts to share with us how we can empower ourselves and take care of ourselves. So please enjoy and in this webinar series. Valerie, to you.
Thanks, Teck Ching. I really appreciate being here with all of you, and thank you so much for this fantastic collaboration. I'm Valerie Shelley. I'm from Access Health International, our Southeast Asia office. I am Senior Program Manager here, and Access Health, as a little introduction, we are a nonprofit global health think tank and advisory group. We are dedicated to the mission and vision that everyone has the right to receive high quality, affordable healthcare, no matter age, gender, socioeconomic status. So everything that we do falls under that mission and vision. We work to reduce health disparities by shaping the social and environmental determinants of health. We conduct practical evidence-based research. We do a lot of cultivating partnerships and networking. We foster health innovation in order to strengthen health systems. And that includes considering the community perspective as well, and how important that is in shaping a person's health and well-being. And we operate in Singapore, but we also have offices throughout Asia and India and China, as well as the Philippines. We have been excited for the last couple of years to be able to collaborate with Wings on multiple occasions. We support, among many other things, we support the healthy and happy well-being and growth of women around the world. So we are more than happy to come together on these webinar series and show our support and to add whatever knowledge and wisdom that we can, and to hopefully continue this wonderful collaboration with Wings in the future. So thank you so much for having us, and everyone enjoy the webinar.
Thank you so much, Valerie and Teck Ching. I think it's extremely wonderful work that both your organizations are doing, and I'm really looking forward to the many different collaborations that can come out of it in the future. So thank you. And now for today's session. And the topic is really, let's talk thinking positive. And I think staying positive is so important, especially for us women as we are transitioning through the different stages of our lives. And, you know, no phase, I think, is as important as those turning 40. Truly, I think this is a phase where women are facing so many challenges in their lives. It's a time when, you know, women feel, and I think as women, we are perfectionists. We tend to be perfectionists. We feel like we want to do everything, we can achieve all. But, you know, things get harder, I think, especially in different stages of our life, more so at this stage where we are trying to balance career, family, often young children, parents who are aging, you know, and our other, and we still want to stay socially connected to all our friends. We want to still, you know, be engaged with the various activities that we are passionate about, but having it all is tough. It's not easy. And often, you know, it leads to us being extremely stressed, not being able to cope. And at its worst, I think it has led to people feeling depressed, feeling isolated, feeling like they cannot, you know, manage it, feeling like a failure. So, you know, it's really, it's so important that we need the mental and emotional resilience to really handle these challenges while we are also coping with all these different life changes, etc. So, you know, I feel today's session is truly, truly important. And we are very, very privileged to have with us a group of experts who, through their own experiences, are able to share with us their very inspiring stories and experiences and some very useful tips of how they, you know, they can share tips with us on how we could cope with a lot of these emotional stresses and still stay positive. So it is my extreme pleasure to welcome first Lillian Ong. Lillian is the founder of Class Living and Women of Courage Asia. Both are women empowering platforms. And having overcome years of self-doubt, fear, postnatal depression, and even suicidal tendencies, Lillian's life mission is really to empower women to live a life of courage, purpose, and freedom, and equipping them with the skills and mindset to do so. Next, we have Linda Chua. Linda is a clinical psychologist at Call Psychological and Counseling Services. Linda believes in helping clients realize their potential in coping with life difficulties and life transitions. She is part of a crisis response team and conducts training workshops on mental wellness and psychological first aid. And next, we have Lai Sam, or Sam, right, for short. So Sam is a life coach helping women who are going through midlife transitions gain clarity, freedom, and joy. Sam has over 20 years of experience navigating the corporate world, leading high-performing teams, and coaching them in sales, marketing, operations, support, and client management. So truly, truly, you know, a privilege to have all of you on board with us. Thank you so much for joining. So, you know, I know that I've read through all your bios and, you know, it's so inspiring and really, truly all the good work that you have done. And I know each of you have truly inspiring stories of how you've got to where you are today and to be doing what you're doing. And I think more importantly, how you're helping the community around you with, you know, what you've gone through. So if I could ask you to share your life story and share, you know, your experiences of how you have come to be where you are today. So if we could start with Lillian. Lillian, thank you.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Yeah, first of all, thank you for the invitation to be here to share. I have a great conversation. Right. First of all, I'm a mother of two. So my son is 21 years old now in the army, serving in the army, and my daughter is 18, going 19 this year. Right. So for my story, basically, I was in a nutshell, right. I was actually being molested at the age of 5 and 6 around that time. And then because of that, it was very traumatic, and I totally shut down. My grandfather even thought that I'm mute, because I totally shut down and don't speak. But I found an outlet in stories. Yeah. So during the childhood days, I like to tell stories, and the teacher picked me out for, to tell stories, and I escaped into the land of stories. Yeah. And then I begin to speak. And into the adolescence, I went into different uh, relationship, the BGR problems and all that, and didn't have a mentor, didn't have, I couldn't speak to my parents and at home, so that there isn't anyone guiding me. So, and I slipped into a lot of negative thoughts, a lot of self anger, very angry with myself and for making the wrong decisions that I make. Yeah, and suffering the consequences of it, which resulted in attempting suicide as well. So at the age of 18, I actually attempted suicide, but thankfully, thank God, I'm still around. He saved my life to be sharing today. And moving on to motherhood, I actually, because of the build up of all the emotions that I didn't know how to release, I didn't know how to express. It was suppressed over the years. And during the pregnancy, postnatal depression, postnatal blue, right? Some say, and it triggered a tsunami of eruption of emotions that I couldn't handle. Yeah, so I slipped into depression and was very suicidal, and was always thinking about ending my own life. I was very angry with myself. I just struggle with this anger issue about being angry with self. And I would have very scary thoughts like, throwing myself down tall buildings, or get dashing out onto the road to get myself killed by the car. Or when the baby cry, I'll cry, and even have thoughts of throwing the baby against the wall or throwing the baby down buildings, tall buildings. So it was actually a very scary period that I went through. But thankfully, there is hope, because through support and through practical strategies that I applied, I managed to walk out of the depression without any clinical intervention, actually. So because of that, and then in the area of relationship with my husband also, there was a lot of resentment because he traveled so much, and I went through the entire pregnancy alone, the first one. So he only came back during the last week before the delivery. So that built up a lot of resentment as well, and I didn't know how to manage the conflicts, and again, I suppressed a lot of my needs, and didn't know how to express it. So our conversation couldn't last for 3 sentences, and all hell broke loose. But thankfully, again, there was support that came along, and I learned to overcome all these relationship issues. Yeah. So my journey was, in a nutshell, that was what I went through. And venturing into investing in myself and building myself up, that's where the breakthrough start being evident in my life. There is one moment that I will never forget, and that is when I totally broke down because I couldn't put up a strong front any longer. So at that moment, I remember it was at the balcony in my home, my first home. I was looking out of at the playground. I was actually attempting to commit suicide again, but I thought, let me just go back into the bedroom and have a last look at my children. When baby they sleep, their stomach go up and down, up and down. It was very therapeutic actually, and I totally forgot to end my life. But I was very tired physically, mentally, and emotionally. I went into their playroom and I just dropped down and then just started crying. The crying starts from actually weeping and crying, and then after that I went into a wailing. I was actually wailing. I didn't know how long I was wailing on the floor, but I knew that it was a release of a tsunami of emotions. And at that moment, I decided to make a decision that I needed support. I need help. I cannot hold on to this any longer on my own. I needed help. And then the day after, help came along as a neighbor. And then the journey, that was the whole breakthrough of the journey. And that's how, I step out of my comfort zone to get engaged with the community of mothers, receive the support and slowly walk out of that depression journey. Yeah. So that's in a nutshell of my story.
Oh, wow, Lillian, thank you so much. I mean, that's truly a very, very powerful sharing. Thank you so much. And I can see, the importance really of reaching out. And I think having that support group, I think that is so, so important for all of us, especially women, for the things that we have to go through, etc. So thank you so much for that sharing. And next, I would like to invite Linda, but before we do that, I wanted to say, I'm sure many of you have questions and comments along the way. Please put that in the Q&A or chat bucket that you see, and we'll certainly look to get our various our experts to comment or to address your questions along the way. Thank you. So Linda, over to you.
Morning, everyone. Thank you, Lillian, for your very personal sharing. I think you have a very eventful life. My sharing with all of you today is from a less personal perspective, in the sense that I think, how as women you work an X number of years and then you're kind of like comfortable in that particular job that you're in, everything's going well and smooth and all that. Then comes a time, like you said, when you reach about 40s or 50s or so, it's like decades already, right? So it's like, what happens now? Where do I go from here? So my interest in psychology actually began from my work with patients who were people who were going through some depression, anxiety, or the mental health disorders. But I was at the back end. I wasn't directly looking after patients themselves or whichever. But more so, I was in touch with the people, the caregivers, the families of these patients. So what happened was that, you know how it is every time when someone, when a friend meets someone, for instance, and then they say, oh, how, and knowing that someone is sick, or whether they ask, oh, how has your father been? How's your mother been? And something. But the caregivers themselves, or the people who are looking up, they say, but nobody asked me how I am doing. You know what I mean? So that was when I thought, oh, actually there is a need here that we can't just totally focus on the ill persons only, on those individuals, but what about the caregivers and the other people looking after them? So this was where I thought, okay, there's probably a need here, in the sense that caregivers, not just those who are sick themselves, need some help as well, and to maintain a life balance, otherwise we'll be creating more. Right. So I think a very good case study that I'd like to share perhaps is, with the COVID-19 situation, a lot of people are going through changes, in the sense that, especially those who are professionals and where they have to work from home. So it's a very huge adjustment. So the transition now is that I no longer go to the office. I no longer have my own desk or space. But what happens is that I have to make do with what I have for myself and my family. And in Singapore, not everyone has the luxury of space, in that sense, or private personal space at home. So quite a number have come forward to say that it's very hard to just work from home entirely, because my children demand my time, my in-laws or my parents. So there's always big adjustments to be made. So I think that this is where, again, it calls for the individual, a very individual-centered approach, in the sense that I need to change my lifestyle, or I need to adjust and all that, but it gets extremely difficult for many. And because of our Asian tradition sometimes, where, example, filial piety can be questionable, some of them feel that, if I am not attending to my family, well, that means I'm a bad mother. So one classic example we had recently was someone working from home. They're not in their 40s exactly, but the main thing was that it was a big transition, because the husband has to work from home, and then wife recently had a baby, and she was going through postnatal depression as well. you know, and the space, the apartment is quite small for the two of them. So there's no third helper or third person in that sense. So it is very hard, right? So the thing is, like if we saw earlier as to our individual quotations from before we started the webinar, changes are inevitable, right? But the thing is, how do we actually manage such changes and to embrace these new changes? Yeah. So yeah, so I mean, I'd like to say that it is not impossible, but it does call for a change of mindset. I mean, like how Lillian has shared, I think she probably had a tough time changing her mindset, and it's, you know, and it's not possible to do it on our own most times. We need the support of other people, whether it's family, friends, or understanding people. Yeah, so I think a lot of success to the change would be support from not just the individual self, but those around us as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Linda. I think you shared some really real examples, especially on what has been happening over the whole pandemic period over the last year. So I've heard, you know, some stories of families that have broken apart, fallen apart, etc. during the crisis. And women, I think especially, you know, they feel that they have to hold everything together and the lines get blurred. They are working from home, they are mother, they are, you know, daughter-in-laws, daughters, etc. So it's tough. So thank you so much for your sharing, and you know, I would love to touch on that subject a bit later. But first to Sam, please tell us, you know, share us your story. It's so fascinating.
Thank you so much, everybody, and thanks for having me here this morning. I am so inspired by Lillian and Linda's sharing, and I have a little bit of a different perspective and a different side of that story as well. So I'm a typical Singapore girl. So I grew up in a very small family, and only my dad is working. So you can already see what is the frame that is given to me. So my role in the family has always been the supporter. So I put everybody else first. So that is my mom is like that. So therefore, that is what I learned. So from a very young age, I learned to make every decision that will please my parents and will make the family environment a very good one. So I am the smart one, the clever one, the reliable one, the responsible one. So this is important framing for what is about to happen in my life when I finally turn 40. So I am a pharmacist by training. So I practiced as a pharmacist for 2 years, and then I had the opportunity to join a healthcare technology company. It's an American company, so the values, the framing is all a little bit different. And as I joined it, I really felt very excited to be embarking on something new. And that was when I was 24 years old. So 24 years old, I had the opportunity to join. And by the time I was 35, it has been more than a decade in the company. I worked through different roles, different things, and I really had an enriching career. However, at 35, I met a really toxic boss. And that was the start of my transition. Linda would know this, right? So that like COVID, it is a transition for a lot of people. For me, it was a toxic boss. That truly made me question, like, what am I doing this for? What's the reason that I'm taking this path? But at that time, and by the way, in the meantime, I got married, I had 4 kids. So there was a lot on my plate. And at 35, my kids were very young. In fact, at 34, I just had the 4th child. So my youngest was only a year old. And so after that, I just sort of push it aside and try to deal with the situation in that frame. Within 2 years, he left the company, but he left a lot of damage, not just to me, but to the company as well as to a lot of the people that were working there. But that feeling did not go away. It's kind of like a door where you open and you cannot close back, right? Because you already start to realize that, hey, what's the reason? What the why became very big. And as I journey along, I had really good bosses, but it didn't make much of a difference. That passion, that excitement has dropped, is lost on me, because then my frame has shifted already. So it is on hindsight that I realized I was going into transition. I just ignored it for 5 years. So at the age 40, when I was like, I cannot wait any longer, I've got to make a change. I feel this this trigger to make a change, but I don't know what that is. So and I can't quit my job like that because I have kids. And speaking to my husband, I asked for his support. And to Linda's point, you do need to ask for support of the people. It was a very scary conversation because I don't know how he's going to react, right? But he was very supportive, and he said, look, you can't quit immediately, and I agree with you, but let's work together to see what we can do for the next few years. So in the next few years, we did a lot of brainstorming, and in the next 5 years, I started to make decisions for myself rather than for my family only. So that was very difficult for me, as you realize my early framing. And when I started to make those decisions, I became more and more empowered. I hired a life coach for 2 years, and I worked with her again, that's asking for support. And during this time, I also retool, reskill, do a lot of experiments to see what will work for me. And finally, I had a plan on the 45th birthday to quit my job. And 3 years ago, I did. I quit my job for good, and I transitioned into my own coaching practice. So now I serve as well, but I serve in a very different way. In the meantime, I protect and take care of myself so that I can continue to serve more. So so this journey, the journey of transition has been very enlightening and also inspiring for myself. And so now I help women with transitions as well. So that's my very humble story.
No, thank you. No, it's a very inspiring story. And I think hearing, especially from Lillian, yourself, you know, often all of us as women, we go through different stages, and there are often trigger points. I think like for Sam, you know, that toxic boss, I can associate with that, yes. And you know, things that actually happens that really like, so that really changes our lives in that sense. So how to, you know, kind of trigger mindset to start caring for self, to, you know, it brings again the importance of thinking positive, being positive, doing that whole mindset change to get ourselves back into the more positive frame of mind, you know, get out of that kind of situation that we are in. So I would love to hear, you know, your views on that. Shall we start again maybe with Lillian, if you could touch on that?
For me, like just I mentioned, you know, I had a lot of anger, self condemnation, self guilt, and all that. Yeah. So, and the whole trigger was the pregnancy, because I was able to hold on to everything, like, you know, everything under control, under my control. It looks like under control. Yeah, but it was a pregnancy, and that triggered the whole thing, and it was painful. The pain is really to the extreme already. And it was my children, my babies, yeah, that actually jumpstart the whole process of self-discovery, self-development. Because I was asking one question to myself, like, how can I teach my children courage? You know, I can't just tell them, you know, I need to show them. And I remember, you know, when I started to read bedtime stories to them, and it wasn't just reading, it was acting out the whole story, you know. And I guess it was my immersion and love about stories that when I share do bedtime stories with them, we acted it out. You know, I would be the big bad wolf chasing after them, and they would be hiding under the blankets and screaming and all that. So it was the whole process of acting it out. And I guess also because I'm a kinesthetic learner and very visual, so it's quote unquote walk the talk. Yeah. And that got me thinking, you know, if I want to put my life back together again, and now I'm a mother, how do I teach my children courage? The only way I could think of is to walk the talk and to show them. Yeah. So that's where I started to do research. I started to read up, you know, about everything about mindset. I read up a lot of self-help books. You know, I went back to church, and, you know, and and I was very open to receiving support, because back then I felt that receiving support is weakness. You know, sharing about my vulnerability is weakness. So that was a shift of mindset. Yeah. So with all that I was like a sponge, you know, I was like just reading and absorbing and you know, getting all the knowledge that I could, and putting it into practice, applying it. I remember writing all this positive mantra or verses, you know, and I'll just stick it all over my place, in a mirror, from the bathroom to the kitchen, everywhere that I can see. It was a visual cue to remind me to be positive, to build on that positive thought, instead of keep spiraling down those negative voices. Yeah. So every time the negative voice comes into my head, I will recite and declare, you know, all those positive, mantra or verses. Yeah. So that was the trigger. My children was the trigger. Yeah.
No, I think that is so true. And you know, I think again the word trigger, it's like certain things that triggers us to negative thoughts, etc. But even more important than what are the triggers that gets us back into a positive mindset. And I think we have to almost do it consciously, because you know that's kind of like how do we do it? And that's an important area that, you know, I would like to touch on in a little bit. But to hear more first on, you know, why it is just so important to kind of learn the tools to be on a positive, kind of get on a positive track. So maybe I could ask Linda to elaborate a little bit on that.
I think basically, like we said earlier, and Lillian also said that a change of mindset is the most difficult, because there's certain beliefs that we grew up with, and it's very entrenched in our system. You know, because if we were to deviate from what is the norm of the family, it may be seen as something betrayal to the family, for example. It can be viewed in that light. But on the other hand as well, when there's no movement towards tweaking that belief, or preventing it from influencing us in a positive way, then there needs to be a change. There needs to be a step up to be taken. However, and also what is very I think what is very difficult for all of us is this point about vulnerability, because especially in this Asian culture, we don't want to show that we are vulnerable or that we don't know. Because if you realize that even in the kids that we see, I mean, I see clients from teenagers upwards, right? So that's why I can know the different developmental changes that they are going through in that sense. But if they were to give the answer like I don't know, it becomes very lowered self-confidence and a low self-esteem in that particular individual, you know. So that's the thing. So basically the change in the belief system would have to take effect. If, for example, let's say example is I believe that men cannot be trusted, for example, because this was imposed upon me for the very reason that, you know, I've been maybe attacked by men, you know, in being that vulnerable place. And then again as well, sometimes even women or young girls that I have seen, you know, they wear revealing clothes, yes, but they find that, okay, this suits me very nice, I'm wearing this spaghetti strap dress and all that, that's fine. But there are some comments from even a father can tell the child, yeah, but you're asking for it, you're asking to be raped, you know. So these kind of comments and all that are very unhelpful, and especially if they have been imposed upon the individual, the young girls, you know, teenagers especially. They grew up with that, and therefore they feel that if they were to deviate from whatever the parents have taught them, it's a betrayal to the family system, for instance, right? However, that was when they were children, but mostly we tell our current day clients or the adult ones, yes, when you were a child, you did not have the power or the choice to disobey, because there would have been consequences for you. But now as an adult, you know, you can now think for yourself, how much do you want? You have to go for what you actually want. So like Lillian, for instance, I go for what I want, right? And also for Sam, I don't stay in my that framework that was brought in, but I'm willing to open up and be vulnerable. Yes, pain may hurt, may come in, but we can deal with that. That's the thing. So if you don't know what is pain, actually, you won't know what is pleasure as well. You know, for some people. Yeah. So it's good in the sense. So the belief system is a very powerful element within ourselves that needs actually addressing. Yeah, so when we don't try to tweak this, it can become a big hindrance and we can't break the cycle. Yeah.
Thank you, Linda. And
Welcome.
I think what you brought up also on expectations, I don't know whether it is also expectations, especially it's higher for women. Also, I think Asian cultures, expectations to be, a certain way, etc. And Sam, you touched, on that earlier. I think you're trying so hard to live up to all the expectations around you, right? And that makes it increasingly tough as we have more responsibilities, more areas to look after, etc. So, would love to hear more from your experience.
Yeah, I totally agree. The expectation is a very long word and very, very heavy word. As a woman, I feel like I resonate so much with what Linda has said about the family belief and the family system. That comes with a lot of expectation and the way you're supposed to behave, decisions are made. I lived through that, and so that is still very deep-seated in me. But as I grow and I got exposed more and more to the working world and different cultures, I started to realize that there are many different ways of doing the same thing. So in my own personal life and my own family, I started to deviate from that very traditional model. So I don't expect the same thing of my kids, and I don't expect them to make certain decisions that I would have made when I was younger. And I resonate so much with what Lilian was speaking about, vulnerability. That was not almost, I told myself I'm not allowed to be vulnerable. That was kind of like this a software that's installed in me to not be vulnerable. So when I really hit the wall when I was 40, it was not an option not to be vulnerable anymore. I have to ask for help at that point. And so even when as I take actions, even when 3 years ago when I was about to quit, right, I had to narrate that conversation with my parents in my head. How do I frame this conversation I'm about to quit? So the first thing I say is, don't worry, nothing is going to change for you. You're still going to get all the allowance you're going to get. See how it is like, okay, don't worry, everything is going to be same for you. It's just on my part is different. That's all. So that belief system is really very hard to break ahead. So and my dad had one job for his entire life. So for me to change jobs is like, what are you doing? And to start your own practice is even more frowned upon in my family system. So what I did that was really helpful to me as I reflected upon my journey was really, I'm a very action taker. So I take a lot of action. So there were 3 areas that I take a lot of action on. Number one, because I don't know, right, how to do this. So I read a lot of books. I watch a lot of videos, and that increased my knowledge. And early on, I realized that you can learn anything if you're willing to, from books, from videos, from everything online. So that's the benefit of our generation now. Second thing was really to ask for help. So the 2 people that I really lean a lot on was my coach as well as my husband. So those were the 2 main people. Of course, I asked for help from other people like the coaching community. So I volunteer in the coaching community, and that grew my support system as well. And the third thing, surprisingly, exercise. I hired a personal trainer, and that really helped me to get a better sense of who I am physically, as well as the mindset. It really helps me to be more positive. So these were the 3 areas that as I reflected, I think those were the ones that are really the main pillars that supported me, among others.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think exercise definitely helps as well. And, also, I think a lot of us, we talked about expectations, more so because, we kind of have a front, right? I think in our younger days, especially, we talked about positioning ourselves and, how we want others to perceive ourselves. And when it gets harder, it starts cracking. There's that whole, it's wrapped up in our self-esteem as well. And I think when we are not able to cope, it becomes almost like a failure if we have to admit it and ask for help. So, any thoughts about how we can, anyone can share about how it could be easier for others to do so, and how they can, what are some tips around that?
Sorry, Julie, your question is what tips to break that cycle of having a certain perceived thought, is it?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I think I can share a little bit of my experience from here. I mean, through learning, I learned about this unconscious cycle that goes on in our mind. And I had this belief that, I have body image issue, right? So this pertaining to image, right? So regardless of what size I look, right? Because when we are younger, you can slim, you don't eat, you die here, you slim down, and then after that you eat, it's like you go on a yo-yo cycle. Yeah. And I had this belief that I'm always very fat, and from family culture, they always call you you're very chubby, and so cute and all that. So again, like what Linda and Sam had shared, this belief system has ingrained in me that I am fat. Yeah. So I will always hide behind people whenever people take picture. I will not be the one standing in front, you always stand behind. So gaining the awareness, there are three A's that are always framework that I guide myself, is awareness, attitude, and action. Awareness, gaining the awareness of this unconscious cycle in my head, in my mind. I learned to break that cycle. Every thought we have has an emotion that attached to it. So whenever I think that I am fat, I don't like exercise, the emotion that attached to it is very negative. Yeah, I'll feel very, I don't have the energy and all that. And my body is neurologically and physiologically will create certain chemical reaction. I'm not a doctor, so I don't go into the science jargon, but in layman terms, yes, there's some chemical reaction that going on in our body. And then it resulted in a action, the behavior. So if I don't like to exercise, I will have a negative feeling about exercising, and my body will create a chemical that, I won't take the action. So, and I will keep going in that cycle. I was on that cycle for the longest time. Yo-yo, skip meals, sometimes exercise, and then when I exercise, I don't feel good about the exercise. But when I took the action to break that cycle by engaging a support, a coach, to support me with this whole regime. And when I took that action, my body reacted positively. So I begin to slim down, and then I begin to feel good, and I begin to think that, hey, actually, exercise is not so bad. Yeah, and the emotions that attached to it was good, and it releases all these endorphins and all that. So with the body system of support, I was able to break that cycle. Yeah, but of course, it takes time. So it takes about 21 days to actually build up, and then another 2 sets of 21 days, so altogether. That's why programs, weight management program, usually like 60 days or 90 days to break that cycle. Yeah. So one way is to gain awareness of where you are right now. What is the pattern that you are in, the unconscious pattern that you are in, and then get the support to break that cycle. It is possible to break that and disrupt that cycle. Yeah. So because of that, I at the age of 44, I hate running, by the way. I hate running. But at the age of 44, I managed to complete 2 half marathons, which is beyond my imagination. So that was tearing down limiting beliefs and self-defeating beliefs. Yeah. And through that process of breaking that cycle, I lost 10 kg and 16 cm off my waistline, which was also like blow my mind. How did I do that? But it is possible. Yeah. So I just want to encourage everyone that there is hope. that we can actually disrupt the unconscious pattern in our life, the self-sabotaging patterns in our lives. Yeah, I hope that helps.
Thank you, thank you. And we must all learn how to do it. I think it's really important, like how to break the cycle, change the habit. It's a lot easier said than done, I know that. I mean, we're talking about, hey, you know, we sometimes have friends and family who are, you know, down and they say, Hiya, be more positive, you need to be more optimistic, get out of it. But it's truly, you know, it's not like just a magic wand that can be, you know, just cast, for example. So it's a lot easier said than done. And I'd love to hear also from Linda too, if you can share some very practical tips, you know, that we can incorporate in our daily lives to actually get us into a more positive mindset.
Probably the first thing you ask yourself is, how long do you want to stay in this rut or this negative position? Because definitely for a number of people, you've been through some joyful times, you've been through some good times, despite maybe some setbacks or whichever, right? But the thing is, to get out of that comfort zone is sometimes very difficult. However, when you start realizing whether whatever you are doing currently, are they bringing you what you actually would want for yourself? You know what I mean? So in to some extent, your goals are not being met in that particular position when you stay. Let's say, for instance, if you are one who is usually you wanting to talk to your friends, you feel happy with your friend when your friends come visit you, etc., and all that, which means to say, yes, we are all interdependent. But at one point, if you find that, because I'm a widow, so no one wants to come. I can't go out with other couples and all that. So that's a part of me that's been taken away. But at the same time, is you need to ask yourself, what is your life dictated by? You know, is it just because by your position as a married woman, or is it as an individual who have actually a lot to contribute to give to others? So sometimes what we do is you can ask the people you live with or your close friends, what do you think of me as a person? You know, you kind of like do a little survey of yourself, right? Ask others what your friends think of you, and then they may say, oh, I think you're a very nice, kind-hearted person. I like your patience, etc., and all that. So from there, you kind of realize, hey, I actually have strengths within me. I'm not useless even though I'm a widow, for example, or I'm not useless just because I'm not earning this great prestigious job anymore, kind of thing, right? At that same time also, around that age, you probably would discover more about yourself in terms of life is not just dictated by all those 5 C's that you have gained earlier on, but there are also other meaningful things to go on to. So basically, the big question to an individual is, what brings me meaning? You know, ask yourself as to what do I find meaningful? So this is where also sometimes retirees, for example, when they are so caught up in the corporate world, especially for men, I think they're so used to it that, you know, that when it comes to retirement, oh no, I'm going to not be able to go to work at this, my regular schedule is being broken up, for instance, right? So what do I do? So when you leave something, we need to remember that, what's next for me that I can do, and I have meaning, I can find meaning in it. But support is very important. So for individuals, identify what your resources are and tap on those resources first, you know. And also, if you have children, what kind of a mother do your kids actually would like out of you? What would they say about you? That kind of self-reflection. Yeah.
Thank you, Linda. Very positive, you know, tips. And I like your point, especially about how do we find meaning, right, in our lives, purpose. So thank you. We can come back to that in a little bit. But over to you, Sam. Any practical tips, advice you can share with all of us?
Absolutely. I must say that what you see now took a decade to work on. So I'm 48 this year, so that's more than a decade. What is that really that first step, right? There's still a lot of fear. At that time was truly fierce. So I was frozen for 5 years, as you remember, because my child was young. I was frozen for 5 years. It was in the next 5 years that I slowly, gingerly take the first step, right? To change that frame is not easy. And so I told myself, okay, what are my options? So I'm a very action-oriented person. I need to like take action. So in order to know, right? So I had a list and I even eliminated some of the lists, like being a tuition teacher, because I did that when I was doing my A-levels, and that was my natural response, right? What about other things, start a business and all that? Eventually, actually, coaching is not the first business that I think about. It was actually baking, because everybody say, "Wow, Sam, you should own your own bakery," and because we love all your bakes. I did that for 1 year. And from a home bakery, and my clientele increased. I broke even after 6 months, but I was not happy at all, because the repetitive action did not do anything for me. And I also found out one thing about myself. I love to deliver service to others, but only if I can see the impact. My clients were just paying me money, take the cupcakes and leave. So I never see the joy on their faces, which is what I see on my friends and family. So that exercise, that experiment, to me was very successful, even though after 1 year, I'm like, okay, no more, enough, right? And that's why I move on to my next thing to try. And that sense of making mistake was very difficult. As you know, we need to be perfect. Growing up, that's what we were told. Yes. And somebody shared with me this thing, which is the 3 stages, right? The first thing is, when we first started out, we were trying to survive. So we were trying to make money. We were trying to make a name for ourselves. And so we were in a job. So over time, we become successful. So success is the next S, right? And that was when we have a stable income, stable family, and all of that. And that is when we look for the last one, which is what Linda said, meaning, which is the next S, significance. So we're looking for that significance. And that significance starts from one, for me, was that change in the mindset that, how about let me try to take action and see what happens for me. So what is the experiment? I must push myself to be a bit more daring, because it was very, very scary. I could potentially lose money, I lose time, effort, and all of that. But I focused on what was at the end, which was learning, what will I learn from this experiment? So that truly helped me to switch my frame a lot better. But at the beginning, I can tell you, filled with fear, tremendous.
Thank you, Sam. And just a reminder to all our participants out there, please continue to send your comments or your questions. We've already got quite a few that have come in, and comments saying that it's been a very interesting sharing, and a big thanks for all the thoughtful tips. We have one interesting question where they've said, thank you for all your sharing. The speakers are very super confident, very strong personalities, but many women like me are not so outgoing and not so strong. How do we take the first step? I think that's a very good question. You know, it's how do we take the first step? Would any of you like to take a first step at this question?
Let me just comment to this question.
Thank you, Linda.
Yeah, okay, this one. Okay, firstly, it doesn't mean that if you're not outgoing, you can't be confident, or, you know, that's quite a myth in that sense. And a lot of people are not outgoing, as you say. A lot of women are not outgoing. I mean, for myself, I'm not an extrovert, right? But it doesn't mean that you can't be confident in whatever you believe in, or whichever, or your believe in your strengths. So what you need to do is actually to believe in yourself, that because recognize that every individual is different. We all have different strengths and different weaknesses, but we focus on our strengths. The more you think about, I'm an introvert, no one will like me, I won't go to this party and all that, it's going to be a self-defeating thing for you when we have that mindset, you know. But you can take one step at a time. Maybe go with a friend, go with a trusted friend, start your circle small, you know, and then maybe you can initiate a discussion with your usual friend, you know. think about the hobbies that you like. For instance, if you like cooking, I mean, like what Sam was saying, baking, it's an interesting topic to share with your friend. So once you're knowledgeable about a certain topic, or you have your interest and you know something about it, just share the information that you have with your friend, and then you bring in another friend, you know. So you start small. You don't have to be an open group thing or whichever. And I think the other thing is possibly as well, if there are some courses out there available in terms of public speaking or interacting. If you're interested in that, okay, why not just go for that as well? One thing good is to attend some workshops, because I think Wings has a lot, right? There'll be, yeah. So attending these workshops would also increase your self-confidence. Yeah. But firstly, to stop thinking that you can't do it. You have to start thinking that I want to do this. I want to help myself. I want to be good, and I want to know what are my strengths and how I can actually bring them to their potential. Because everyone has strengths. It's just that it's hidden sometimes, or it's not brought up. Yeah. So do take the time to discover. Don't give up on yourself. Whatever is, believe in yourself. Yeah.
May I add on to that? Like, thanks, Linda, for sharing that. I think that's the very beginning step. And I think I want to add on to the why. Like, why do you want to, step out in the first place? Why do you want to change in the first place? Right. So, like, I just want to encourage the participant also that, right, what Sam said, what you see us today is a decade of work. Yeah, I am not an extrovert. I am a super introvert. I don't like to speak. I don't like to talk. Being able to do public speaking now is a miracle. So, yeah, and I don't like to interact with people. I like to be alone. I'm okay totally being a lone ranger. So getting engaged with a community, to interact with the mothers, to receive support, that was so tough. That was really literally stepping out of my comfort zone. But what pushed me out was the why. Why? Why do I even want to take all this action? Right? I can just jolly well stay in my comfort zone, but it was the why that pushed me forward. And I did what I want to do because of my why. So you want to find out what is your why. You want to ask yourself your purpose, your why, the reason for taking the actions that you want. Yeah. I hope that encouraged the participants.
I also want to share a story from a client. One of my clients is a corporate professional, and she's doing very well for herself, but she's an introvert. So she doesn't like to public speak, and she's been given feedback that she needs to be seen and heard in the boardroom. And she feels very inauthentic and very stressed out by the fact that she's expected to speak up when that's not her style. So when I asked her what her brand was, she wanted to be seen as smart, reliable, strong, and yet not talk when it's unnecessary. So she frowned upon people who talk, but actually there is no substance. So that's what she's resisting. So as we talked, she realized that she's actually very good with one-on-ones and smaller groups rather than standing in front of 20 people and speak. And so I encouraged her to try that route. And she then gained the confidence to be able to try that first. I said, you don't have to start with the 20. You can start with a one-on-one and with the 6 people that it's really important to you. And so sometimes we just need to start where we are comfortable, but we do need to push ourselves a little bit out of our comfort zone to reach out to others. Then that is when you start to discover more about yourself. We need more information to be able to make a change. If we only have what we have, then we are forever going to get stuck in that position.
Thank you. All very useful tips to take the first step. It is so important to take the first step. Thank you. We also have another question. Someone asked, at 40 and 50, how can women find mentors to tell them it's okay to ask for guidance? I think, all of you have shared about the importance of having the network of friends and supporters around you. But sometimes, people who are more introverted, etc., it may be tough to ask for help, ask for guidance. And especially at these ages, I think 40, 50, older years, I think it's even tougher. Any thoughts on that?
I think it goes back to mindset again. Like, I think age is not an issue because like I have no problem having mentors who are younger than me. In fact, one of my business mentor in the area of online marketing and all that, she's about 10 years younger than me. Yeah. So, but I learned from her. I learned so much from her. And I have different mentors in my life. So first step was a step out of my comfort zone, right? Then I learned to, absorb and learn to learn to how to tear down all my limiting beliefs. The next step was investing in myself. And one, besides the books and the resources, the other thing is I seek out for mentors. Yeah. And it doesn't matter to me what's the age of the mentor. If I know that you have walked the talk, you have been there, done that, you know the framework, the strategies, you know how to help me and support me to get to where I want. So it was the being first, then the doing, then you will have what you want. Yeah. So for me, I feel that it goes back to our mindset. Why ask yourself what's the concern here about your age, and the mentor's age. To me, that doesn't matter. It's the experience of that person, the mentor that you are seeking out, with credibility and trust,
Can I just add on to that? In this respect, I'm not quite sure this participant is asking for guidance in what. So it all depends on what kind of guidance are you looking for. And usually most times it's not helpful to go to someone which is a friend or a family member, because sometimes they tend to be judgmental when you disclose something very personal and which you want guidance in. So it depends on what kind of guidance this person is expecting. It is helpful to go to a neutral person like Sam, a life coach, or Lillian, or myself, and any of these agencies can also. So it really depends on what kind of guidance you're looking for. Sometimes people are afraid to show their vulnerable side. So you might want to maybe just read up on some books that offer you the topic that you have questions about, right? And tapping on the resources. Sometimes if you're a member of a faith community or something, you can also look to these people as well, right? So and when you say to tell them it's okay to ask for guidance, this is recognizing that you don't want the good thing is you have the awareness, you know what you need. If you know what you need, okay, well, how do I go about it? What's the process in going about it? So the recognition and the accept, which is I validate this person for recognizing that I accept that I lack this, or I want guidance in this. So from there you go on, allow yourself to experience the differences, perhaps maybe asking around reading from different articles or whichever, but discernment is also important now. Then that will come in later.
I just want to share that when I share what I wanted to do to quit my job with my best friend, she said, "Are you mad?" So sometimes choosing who you tell and who you think I really thought she would support me, but she had a different concern for me. So she's very fearful that if I quit my job, then how am I going to live? But she's coming from her frame of fear and scarcity. But I had a different frame and different thinking already by that time. So the question I would challenge you with is, what is the cost of not taking action, of not finding that mentor? We only think about the cost of quitting my job, right? I only think about, why I quit my job, I don't have a regular salary. But then what is the cost to me if I stayed on? There is a cost too, because that trigger has happened, I have changed. So I couldn't go to my best friend. It's very clear. My husband was more open. Thank God for that. I found a very supportive coach Thank God for that as well. But most importantly, because of my experiment with the baking, I realized it was not for me. And I went to the coaching side of things. That was when I started to get a lot more inspired and realized that I could actually do the work. So where did I go to? The local coaching community. That is when I found so many of them transition from some other career as well. And that is where I found all my mentors and the knowledge that how can I handle this transition? And that was when I felt so much more supported when you are with people who will tell you, congratulations for making that decision.
Thank you. Actually, finding that common network, I think is so important. And that leads to one of the questions too, where someone asks a very practical one. Can you recommend any support groups that encourage and empower women? I think at this point, I want to do a plug for Wings. Certainly at Wings, we have an office in Bishan, and it's open to all women, definitely those turning to 40 and above. And there's so many different activities to remain socially engaged, healthy, be financially secure. I think most important, the feedback that we get is like how women find friendships with other women of similar interests, and they form their own, kopi, kakis together, etc. So, I think that's great. And I know that there are many other networks out there. So I'd love to hear from all of you. Where can we go, right, to meet others of similar interests and to get help?
The one organization that's a not-for-profit is Mums at Work. So I volunteer for them as well as work with them as well in helping moms who are trying to get back to work or trying to start a business. So I work as a coach for them as well for those moms. And it is, since it's a not-for-profit, it has a lot of programs that would support people in those age groups as well as whatever desire or the path that you want to take. So that's another one that I can think of that might be useful.
Yeah, and I think for me it's very obvious as a Women of Courage Asia. We are also a non-profit community. Our focus is on helping women to get from being stuck in fear, self-doubt and limiting beliefs to living a life of courage, significance and purpose. So we have women from different walks of life, different experiences. So our focus is really on helping women also to tap into their vulnerability part that we talk about. So it's all about taking the courage. Take courage to step out. Yeah. And we have this core value called CLASS, which is living a life of courage, love, authenticity, stewardship, and significance. So that guides, the community's culture and behavior, to support each other. So, and we are very thankful for Teck Cheng to be one of our panelists in our upcoming second anniversary. Yeah, so she'll be sharing about, she's the leader, self-leadership. We want to lead ourselves so that we can also support the women around us in our sphere of influence. So thank you very much, Teck Cheng, to be in the panelists as well. Yeah, so that's another area that you can seek out support from.
Linda, anything to contribute?
Well, I know there are a lot of support groups out there, but again, as I said, you need to identify as to what area you are interested in, whether it's a widow support group or, or some other special interest group. If you have a particular hobby and you want to meet more people with regard to that hobby, you like, for example, reading or something of that sort, then just join a book club or something. Yeah, so in a way, you open your options, you open avenues for yourself. And if you don't like it, you can always, I tried this, I don't really like it, just move on to something else. Yeah, but for specific ones, I can't tell you offhand because there are a lot. So it all depends on what your interest is exactly, or what your need is. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, we have a very interesting, comment come question, I suppose. So it's, are only women attending this interesting panel today? And should we should tell the men, especially husbands, to attend and learn about their wives' needs. And I think there was another question that I got also from the team here, whether, you know, the panelists could also share maybe your partners or your husband's support through your journey, because it's such an interesting journey, and also, you know, what you've gone through and how important is that?
Maybe let me start. I think all my conversations with my husband always start with me first. So I actually put myself first, and I thought of things through before it is not an offhand conversation with my husband when it comes to my transition. It was a very I'm not sure about the well thought out, but I did think and plan for that conversation with him. And I explained to him that this is my struggle and my need. And it's very difficult, it's very fearful, very vulnerable, because that is not the impression I give others. But he is my husband, and I, through our difficulties when we were younger in our marriage, we always trust that we are able to depend on each other. Now that takes decades to build up, but eventually I did have that conversation with him. And I think if you don't, they are not my readers, ladies. They are not. And I had this multiple times conversation with my husband. He's like, just tell me what you need. I will support you, but you must say. If you don't say, I don't know. So please do trust your husband. Trust that your partner has your well-being in mind, especially if you have a good relationship. You can bring this to him. He's more than happy to help. They are problem solvers. They just want to fix it for you also. So share with them.
Thank you. And next time we invite the husband to join the sessions as well.
I think Sam brought a very important point in that, no one can read each other's minds, right? This typical husband-wife communication, you know, sometimes the husband will ask the wife, what do you want to eat for dinner? Then, what shall I go and order? Then the wife says, anything lah. Then the husband brings back with something she doesn't like. Why you order this for me? So that's, again, that's where the lack of communication brings about a lot of unhappiness and dissatisfaction. Then they will say, oh, my husband doesn't know what I like. Yeah, but the thing is, you need to tell him what you like, because you can like something maybe at this point in time, and then 3 months later, oh, I don't like this anymore, and the husband never knew, right? So communication is key between couples actually, and the whole family, right? So your children also can't read your mind. If you don't want your children to do something, for instance, you need to reason with them. You need to let them know why, in your opinion, this is not a good idea, but how about going with another idea? But don't drown their ideas, because we want to encourage them to as well to be able to think for themselves. So you give them options and let them choose. So they may make one bad choice, but you are there to support it, whatever it is. You know, for example, in Sam's case, if it had turned out to be a bad choice, her husband would have been there to support her. So this is what we reassure each other in that sense. Yeah, so communication is important.
Yeah,
Effective one of that.
Add on to Linda's point about communication, and on top of that, understanding each other's personality and love language. Yeah, because I mean, using my own experience with my husband, you know, before I understand about the personalities and my personality, his personality, different needs, different motivation, different fears, right? Different passion and all that. So there's always clashes. And then, you know, we always come to this point where, okay, we agree that we disagree. But that doesn't really solve the problem, right? Yeah. And understanding my own personality, that I am like what Linda said, the one that always anything. So it's very frustrating for the other party. Yeah. But learning about personality, you know, and able to communicate. So I learned to like what Sam and Linda said, we must talk. So I remember having these sessions, and it took me a lot of courage to like ask my husband, okay, can we have a talk? Yeah, so the talk I'm talking about is like heart-to-heart talk. Yeah, and it's very challenging. And like what Sam said, you know, they are naturally problem solvers, right? So when you share, they want to fix your problem. But the thing is, I don't need you to fix my problem now. I need you to hear my needs. You know, what am I struggling? Yeah, maybe I just need some encouragement. You know, yeah. So understanding each other's personality and love language. Because love language is very important also. If my love language is quality time, you know, but then the husband didn't know and always think that, you know, buy you gifts, buy gifts. Then when he buy gifts, I just pack it in the cupboard. And then he will think, you don't appreciate, you know, and then you hear, and I feel that you don't love me, you know, you are not spending enough time with me. So yeah, again, I think for my own personal experience, understanding each other's personality, how we are made up, how our desires, motivation, and all that, and our love language, that really helps in my personal relationship, not just my husband, but with my children as well. Yeah.
My husband got smart. He asked me, you want me to listen or fix?
That's a good one. That's after.
I said, listen. Then he like, okay.
conversation.
Then you see him change posture, no? Then he will like, listen only. Then, oh, I'm so sorry you are going through this. So that's what I want. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can fix myself. I'm a strong, capable woman. So I will fix it, but I need to like
Yeah, sorry.
a little bit.
And over time, he became my mentor. He's actually my mentor now because yeah, I learned so much from him. Yeah.
No,
I
thank
think that love language book is a good book to read, simple and easy to read for couples. The 5 languages of love. Then you get better understanding. Yeah. So some of the women and the men want to take that up.
Yeah. The
Now,
Enneagram, the personality one that I'm using is the Enneagram. Yeah. So that was very helpful also.
No, those are great resource, and you know, I think we can share those resource with the audience as well after this session. All very useful tips, and again, communication is so key. We often, you know, really have to make the effort, I think, to convey what we are feeling, what we are saying, to get the others to understand. No, so thank you for that. I think it's, you know, something that's pretty common as well that all of us face. So very practical tips. We have one other comment. I think they mentioned that one speaker said that to identify our resources, tap on them. That's very important. And how do we, any tips on how to tell our family that we are okay and not superwoman? I mean, this often scares them and portrays that I'm weak and in need. How do we make it okay?
I'm the one who said that, right? Identify our resources and tap on them. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this is important because firstly, your family thinks of you as one who is a superwoman and that you are strong and that you're always there. So this is the role that somehow has been drawn by them or have been imparted to them. So the thing is, recognize that you also have some needs yourself as an individual. So what stops you from actually, ask yourself, what stops you from letting another person know that I need help in this, you know? Or if you were to tell your family, I need help in this, what is the consequence to that? You know, do you think that they're going to tell you that you solve it, like you're always capable of it, I don't know how to do it, right? Or when you say this scares them to know I am weak and in need, is it scaring them only, or actually scaring more of yourself because you realize that you can't live up to the expectation, like what earlier on we mentioned about expectations? So the thing is to realize that every human being has got some little difficulty or some little lack somewhere. We're not perfect. No one is perfect, right? So when I say identify your resources, think about your extended family members perhaps, or your network of friends, your best friends or whichever. They can be people that you might want to share your problem with, for instance, and what is it that is troubling you in the sense that you're not able to perform as a superwoman. Or if your family expects you to be a superwoman, maybe, okay, have a family meeting in the sense, I think it's pretty good to have conversations over family dinners in terms of how was your day been, and how did you handle the good part or the bad part and all that kind of thing. So when you have a sharing of that sort, you can also kind of detect, who has some problem or some difficulty in managing certain things. There's also communicating in the sense as a family, right? When you ask how to tell your family that you're not okay, just tell them that, you know, I appreciate. Example, firstly, you empathize with your family if it's someone that you're looking after, for example, right? You know, I appreciate all of you, or you know, enjoying my cooking and all that, but there are times when I feel I cannot cook because there's too much preparation and I need help, right? So there's one example. So telling them you need help is one good thing, right? It just means that you are actually a human being and that you want to be able to meet the expectation, but along the way, you also need some assistance there because you're not a robot, you're not entirely in your a spring chicken as well that you can carry on forever and ever in that sense. Yeah. So just be honest with your feelings. Recognize that if I'm feeling, if I'm not okay, I can tell my husband I'm not okay.
Mm.
You know, yeah.
I often share with my clients that isn't it more difficult it's very hard to share that you need help. And actually that is where you are the most strong because you're strong. That's why you are asking for help. So you're not being weak when you ask for help. Actually, you're the strong one. So, and that really helps them to see things differently. If you can see yourself as strong and you want to continue to be strong for your family, then it is best that you ask for help instead of waiting for yourself to break down.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we've sadly almost come to the end of our session. And I think a lot of what is shared today is, you know, common to many of us. So I hope many of you are able to relate to it as I have. And before we end, can I invite each of you to perhaps share any last thoughts, whether it's tips or words of encouragement or motivation to all of us out there?
I have just remember that your life is full of transitions and there will always be another transition that comes, but also remember that with every start of a transition, there's always the end as well. So at the end, do celebrate that you went through that transition successfully and happily.
Yeah.
On that note, I'll just say, just go with the flow.
Yeah. For me, I just want to encourage everyone that, courage is a choice to take action in the face of fear. And actually, your life unfolds to the proportion of your courage. So one thing that has guided me all this while, right, which I shared in the quote, that is to start by doing what is necessary. Then you do what is possible. And suddenly you're doing the impossible. Yeah.
Thank you so much, every one of you. I think, you know, you've shared so much. You know, it's important to have a support network. We need to invest ourselves. Do not be afraid to say you're vulnerable, that you need help. You know, ask for support. Find the mentors out there. You know, ask what our meaning, what is where we can find meaning and purpose, and communication is key. And the importance of support from our husbands and our community out there. So, you know, all really good. So thank you so much. I think this has been very, very, I found it really useful and very inspiring. And to the audience out there, please join us for all our other upcoming webinars as well, for Women at 40 series that we are having. Next week, we are having a really strong one on staying, a topic on staying strong. So learn about osteoporosis, and there are others out there. So come to our website, look out for it. And it leaves me to wish everyone a very, very happy Saturday and weekend, and a very happy, prosperous, healthy Lunar New Year. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you especially to the audience for being present the whole time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.